do. They just missed the juice. That's all, you know. So for me, it is around helping hosts understand the business that we are running. I'll just go to this quick slide. Is like I think it's initially there's a bit of a disconnection in terms of hosts that come inbound. They think that buying and acquiring a single family residence and then putting more bedrooms in, it's going to handle itself. I created this slide because it's one of my favorites just to put it out there. PadSplit is not a self-driving car. So whoever you've spoken to in the past, if like the assumption is that this thing is going to operate itself, I'm going to be the bearer of bad news. Even if you use a third-party property manager, just to understand our business a little bit better will help you operate in a more efficient manner, which essentially will lead to more net operating income. What PadSplit is not as a self-driving car, but what it is the following. We are the nation's largest single room occupancy marketplace. We do, as a platform, handle the member marketing and demand aggregation, which means we market and spend more money per market in terms of SEO, SEM search. If you go out to any Google search in your town and look for rent by the room, we should be either number 1 or 2 at the top of that organic search. Our platform handles all of the automated weekly rent collections. I'll put a caveat, means that when tenants pay, we're going to come into some situations of reality. This whole call, I think from any perspective, I try to keep it as real as possible. I want you to be eyes wide open about the business that you're in. So if you have any questions about it, fundamentally, my end goal is to help hosts understand the true operating business and nature of what we do. And then one of my favorite things I'll talk about is like, how do we de-risk our business for the things that we know may happen, and then prepare ourselves to optimize for the revenue that we're trying to pull out of these properties. The platform also allows for communications for all members, hosts, property managers, member to member, member to host. That's all comes through our platform. We do provide a member and host support lines for customer service. The member side's 24/7. The host side is extended working hours. All right. Let's just jump in real quick. This is what I have massive conviction around. I do believe in what we're doing from a fundamental standpoint of altruism, but at the end of the day, I'm an entrepreneur. So for me, I look at our business from this perspective. If there's no margin, there's no mission. So I may want to solve affordable housing, but hell, if I'm going to do it losing money, I'll do it somewhere else if I wanted to do it that way. So I focus on how do we operate the most efficient co-living facilities, and therefore make enough margin where then I'm incentivized to go put another property on. Therefore, I am, it's at the end of the day, solving the affordable housing crisis. So if you're doing it just to donate, let me know. I'd be glad to see what that looks like from your business model. All right, so here's the goals. This is what we're trying to get out of this class. Is this first class is an intro to the platform. When I first started here, we ran a different team called the general managers team. It was designed to kind of sit over both sides of the marketplace. And one of the greatest things that it afforded me was it afforded me the opportunity to talk to hundreds of hosts. And our hosts come in all shapes and sizes with all different intent for why they're doing it. But at the end of the day, they're all operating the same business. Each one of them, being a unique entrepreneur, has their own take on it. So from the sense of seeing the breadth of how different operators are successful and how different operators are not successful, that just kind of surfaced the need for a lot of new hosts that come inbound. They focus so much on buying a property and converting it to this model with very little understanding of the operating business to how to generate the revenue. That's why I push so hard for this training to get created. One of the biggest hurdles that new hosts have is that when they get to the platform, all they really know about it, and I call it the sandbox, but nobody really knows how to navigate inside the sandbox that is PadSplit. So if you are an Airbnb host, you understand that, a two-sided marketplace. If you are an FBO person and you do, sales on Amazon, a two-sided marketplace. Same kind of concept. The better you understand the digital marketplace, the rules inside the sandbox, the more success you will have, because then you can lever and you can pull the levers that operate your business, your pad split on top, on inside the confines of the pad split marketplace. And then you don't have to just be a sidecar passenger. You can have what, a agency, in the sense of like you control your own destiny in terms of how you want to operate your business. At any time, unmute, throw your hand up, just yell out a question. Do not, because I'm going to verbally vomit for like the next 15 to 20 minutes. And I don't want you guys to feel like you're getting steamrolled. So
I'm going to take you up on that. I have a
come on,
question.
Celia, let's go. Fire up.
So just real quick, I know that you just hit record. You're going to be sharing this with us afterwards.
Yeah, you'll get a link to the video, and then
Okay.
you'll get the registration links for tomorrow and Thursday if you have the opportunity to join us. I know everybody's schedule is a little bit different. Um, but if you have the opportunity, come join us. If you're not going to be able to, let me know. You can, have a drop down box of different dates that you want to attend. If you're not going to be able to carve out, 90 minutes on a Wednesday and a Thursday, which I know is a heavy ask, I'll send you pre-recorded from previous calls so that you can watch those at, I would suggest at, 2x the speed. I sound like a chipmunk, but you'll at least get the content of what you're looking for.
Perfect.
Okay, and then tomorrow's class, just so you know, is today we're going to focus on the platform. What are the tools on the platform? What's it mean? And then tomorrow, I focus on like, how do we reduce the time to revenue? I love hearing from Nate. I love hearing that other people are getting bookings, but I just want to make sure you're listing. So the framework that I speak about is the marketing side. So if you're looking at your business, how are you marketing your listing? Do you understand what the algorithm is looking for? How do you position yourself to get the most views? I joke that it's the same concept as a Tinder account, right? I don't know if anybody's single, but I have friends that are, and fundamentally, someone's going to swipe right on somebody who looks like a 25-year-old supermodel versus 65-year-old, bag with missing teeth and a black eye. So if you kind of look at our marketplace in that way, is how do I put the best version of my listing out there that is the most attractive? If I give you insights on what the algorithm is and what it's looking for, how do I then get you off of page 7, where you're not going to get very many views, up to page 1 or page 2, so that you get more views? Because more views will ultimately lead to more clicks then convert over to more booking requests. And you, as the operator, you have the opportunity to say yes or no to more people. And then if they do move in, it's at that point in time that whatever thesis or whatever conviction or whatever model that you have in terms of what you think the member experience that you want to deliver, that's when that experience will dictate how long that member decides to stay. And I don't know if you guys have spent a lot of time thinking about it from that perspective, but our business model, just because of the way the fee structure is set up, is really designed around extended tenure. That's when you're going to make the most money leveraging co-living. So if you have a 7-bedroom house and all 7 of them are filled, if they turn over every single month or every single 2 weeks because you don't really have a great member experience that you're curating, because of the way our fee model is set up, which PadSplit keeps the first 10 days, and then on day 11, it will only collect 8% of collected revenue. If you think about that fee structure, it is very much designed around extending tenure. And it actually does hurt you if you have a ton of churn or if you have a lot of short stays. So just keep that in mind as I talk through the operational component of it and how that's going to impact your business. Any questions on the fee model? I know that's something that kind of gets glossed over during a lot of conversations, but now that you're in the heart of it, any questions around the fee structure? All right. I'm going to assume everybody kind of knows what they're getting into. All right. I love this. I stole it from Alex Hormozy. I think this is a really good, concise description of what the host journey looks like. Uninformed optimism. Ooh, I want to make 2 to 3 times income for a single family house. And you kind of peel over. You're like, wait a minute. I have to put in furniture. I've got to put in walls. I've got to put in extra HVAC. I've got to do all these things. Wait a minute. How am I going to make money on this thing? That's some informed pessimism. Wait a minute. There's 7 or 8 random strangers that are going to live in this house. How does this work? If it doesn't start to work out very well, then you have this crisis of meaning that can ultimately lead down to a crash and burn. Or you take this pivot at the bottom of this chasm to, work toward this informed optimism. All right, I think I have some systems in place. I'm more comfortable with how our business works. And then you can, work toward your achievement. I'm a massive proponent of this little cheat code in between here. Seek out mentorship and coaching with people that are currently doing this. I say it in so many different ways. Our business is unlike any other business. It is not short term where people come and go for a demographic that is looking for vacation rentals. We're not long term or Section 8. We're this strange midterm where it is rent by the room for individuals that are looking from an affordability standpoint to book a room for housing. But at the next layer of complexity is now you have 6 or 7 different personalities living in the house. So if you actually think about your operating business, it is, how do I get complete strangers to act in a respectable and acceptable way, while at the same time continuing to pay rent and stay for as long as they like to. So all of those different things, it is a unique monster and a unique business in its own self, but it's definitely one where, we have 27,000 rooms now across the country. The operating model works. Just like every other marketplace, we've got some great operators and we've got some terrible operators, and the good bulk kind of fall in the middle. So the question is, PadSplit does not dictate to you how to run your business, even though some instances where it may seem like they're dictating. At the end of the day, my hope is that all of you understand you own the asset and all of the liability that comes with operating a rental facility. So with that being said, let's keep moving. So this is the mindset change that I'm hoping all of you change from being an investor into the operator. Even if you're using a third-party property management company, I just wanted you to take into the idea of, how is the business inside of my real estate asset that I own? How is it generating revenue? And then of the ways that it generates revenue, how do I optimize it to generate the most revenue? I'm hoping that people underwrote properties very conservatively, because like all real estate investment, you make your money on the buy, right? So if you can kind of think about it, I think I heard Michael say your house is a 5-bedroom house. Michael, is that right?
It's a 6-bedroom house. Yep.
6-bedroom. Got it. And can I just ask, from a top of head perspective, do you know how many rooms it would take you to break even?
It would probably take me four.
Four and a half.
I'm guessing 4 point something, somewhere in the low fours, I would guess, to break even. But I also haven't done this before, so I don't know entirely what my kind of ongoing costs would be. I might have a rough idea of it, but
yeah. The reason I ask is because if this is your first PadSplit investment, I find a lot of hosts get wooed by this idea of operating gross operating income, because then they'll take a normal 4-bedroom 3-bathroom house like this on the left hand side, and they're looking at it from the sense of like, all right, I can rent this for $2,000 a month, but if I break this up into additional bedrooms, I'm going to get roughly $700, $800, $1,000 a bedroom, but that's a gross number. Right. And in our world, the business conversion from going to the before to the after is you're paying construction costs in order to get bedrooms converted. So whether it's a living room or a dining room or a den, you're putting in CapEx costs in terms of converting a room. In many scenarios where some people do not understand our business model in a certain way, or at the granular level, this before house may not be designed or set up for this many people. And I'll use the systems as a simple example. That's why we push to not have septic tanks, because as an engineering mechanism, it's not really designed to have 6 or 7, 8 people using a septic tank because there's a leach field and there's all these other things that are impacted by the usage. The other big component is HVAC. If you have essentially our buy box is somewhere between a 3.2 or 4.3, 1,900 square feet, that house may have been serviced properly by 2.5-ton unit air conditioning. But fundamentally, if you actually put 7 or 8 people in there, you block off walls and you don't take into account the returns or the supplies, that unit may have a really hard time keeping up. So if you didn't change out your air conditioning unit or HVAC unit, or take a really detailed, granular look at where the supplies and the returns are, you may run into some operational issues where members are saying, hey, it's really cold in my room or it's really hot in my room. And, we can answer any questions you have about that. But at the end of the day, I will always find that a host's second property is a much better intentional investment than their first, because these little granular things, unfortunately, if you're not seeking mentorship or coaching along the way, you don't take these things into account when you're doing the conversion. And then to do it retro is really difficult. And typically people just go in there and just swap out HVAC units and put bigger tonnage in. But if the supply lines aren't set up correctly, or the return doesn't come back correctly, the engineering that's happening inside of there doesn't work so well. So obviously I have I have strong convictions around the HVAC piece of it, because if your bedroom 3 keeps turning over because people say it's too hot or too cold, that's a revenue stream that's lost, and vice versa, right? So like, you can handle these and manipulate some of these things during the conversion process. You can put it and amortize it over a 30-year loan when you do your DSCR loan. There's just a lot of ways to solve for it. And unfortunately, it's hard to teach somebody who hasn't experienced it before. All right, so let's jump in. So this is what we're going to focus on today, is jumping into the platform. This is tomorrow. I just give you guys a quick chance. If you want to take a screenshot of this, you can sign up for it. But in the follow-up email, you're going to get the registration links as well. So I would not worry about that. And let's jump into the platform. I'm going to ask any open-ended questions right now. Is there anything specifically around the platform, the digital, I sign into this bad boy? Any questions that you may have around how to navigate around the dashboard? Have you spent a lot of time navigating around in here?
I
Great.
have.
Good.
And some limitations that I have run into. I have one room where there are 2 occupants and it's a couple. And so only one of them appears, like when I go to manage room, or I'm sorry, like manage members, like I can't see the second occupant.
Yeah.
And I had to contact
customer service
support, and then they had to like add the second occupant on the back end. And they also had to increase the weekly rent to account for the second occupant. And so I'm not able to view that or add it myself or make any adjustments to it. I feel like very dependent on PadSwitch support, which I don't like, especially when you guys are holding my money and collecting my money. And the financials is also like, the earnings information is limited, where I can't see like, okay, there's this payout amount, but what does it include? Like, whose payment does it include? Or how
you got to download the CSV, because it'll break it down by
have.
room and by member. It's
No,
not
not
most,
by member. It breaks it
does.
down. It breaks it down. Maybe you could show me that, because
there's a granular CSV file which will break it down by build.
No, but it just shows me property by property. It doesn't show me by member.
It does. It breaks it down by every single line item of each individual payment. So if you break down the CSV file here, and this is a pain in the ass. Like, there's a report, this one here that you're talking about, This is
Yeah.
the granular report, which is at a summarized level. If you export the CSV from here, it'll break down into each individual line item of every single build item and then every single collected item. It'll go build up top and then collected below. It's not so great in terms of how it's outputted. It's just the nature of what it is at this point. So we do have some limitations on the product. We understand that. They're trying to improve it. Thankfully, we are constantly trying to improve things. If you have individual feedback, by all means, please submit suggestions and feedback to the company, because that's the best way we're going to improve is if the end users tell us. As far as double occupancy, I'll just address that. The product was originally designed for single occupancy. And then as we got into being bigger and bigger, it's actually a HUD violation of housing and urban development. It's essentially all landlording laws. You cannot discriminate based upon familial status. So if somebody comes in and says, hey, I am a couple or I have a child, you cannot, you can't discriminate for that reason. So allowing multiple occupancies was the answer to that HUD complaint. You as the operator and the host always have the final say about who can or cannot go into your property. So one of the great suggestions I'll give every host that's on this call, especially if you're a newer landlord, is become really good friends with your ChatGPT and ask it the question, hey, what are the reasons that I can accept and or deny a renter? And if they have children or if they have a dog or whatever the case may be, you may not be able to reject somebody because they have an ESA dog, even though we know in many situations somebody can go to, emotionalsupportanimal.com and pay $25 to get a ESA document for their 200-pound Rottweiler. You can just find a different way to say yes or no, so just be a landlord. If somebody wants to play stupid circus games, and you got to play stupid circus games on the other side. So anything else jump out in terms of specific things that you would like me to make sure I cover before we run out of time?
For me, I kind of know the gist of how everything works. I guess I was having an issue with the when a tenant would leave, how to prep everything, but you kind of helped me out with that on day 3. It was last week.
Yeah. So you're talking about when a move out happens?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So again, at the end of the day, because we're a digital platform, we will never know if Fred is moving out of room 2 on December 16th, like he claims he did. So anything that requires boots on the ground, it's up to the host operator or their team, whether it's a property manager or somebody else, to be able to confirm if somebody has moved out of a property. We don't know what's actually happening inside the walls. Different operators have found different solutions for this. In my entire portfolio, I run a series of cameras inside of the house. There's nothing in any private areas, but all the public spaces. I let my members know coming inbound that this is part of what it's like living at the house. So if they don't consent to that, then they can go find another room. I'm a big believer. It's my house, my rules. There's certain, rules as a landlord that I have to follow. There's certain rules as a pad split host I have to follow. But at the end of the day, my asset, my rules, I'm the host. I don't have to give anybody residency in my home. So if you don't pass my secondary screening, just because you pass pad split screening for background and income, I don't care. Because at the end of the day, if something goes bad, I, as the host, am financially liable for anything that happens in the house. So I just kind of want to, go through the motions of knighting each one of you as, King Arthur's court. It's your house. It's your business. Run it accordingly. Because if you ever come back around and say, but pad split did this. No, they did not. No, they did not. At the end of the day, You make every decision around who you let in, why, whatever happens on the backside of that. You own and have agency for that decision. All right. So this is your dashboard. If you log in as your host account, you should have your logins and set up. And if you wanted to, you can go in and set up your team members accordingly. If you drop down this little yellow menu, you can go into your team and you can set up, who you want on your team. You can give them, certain admin rights in terms of whether they're going to be responsible for the financial. You can be super admin. They get access to everything. Or if they just want to have visibility into what's going on at the house, you dictate that on your teams. That's in this little yellow, or your bubble over here. It could be different colors. This is the email that you have created your host account with. So the next time you generate a new property or a new listing, no worry, Nate. So if you're creating a new listing, you're going to, or, this listing here, the lease, when they ask the question, hey, before this property goes live, this email that you have in your host account, that's the one that they're going to send the lease to for you to sign in order to activate your property. I'm sure you guys have gone through that process. If you are already here, if you have any questions around how that is set up, let me know. If you want to change the emails on your host account, you do have to contact customer service for them to do that, or host support. They'll do that for you. All right. So this is your dashboard. This is hierarchy, right? This is your entire portfolio. When you add a second or third or fourth property, it'll list it here. This is a property that I have ongoing. It is going live in 10 days. So I started creating the listing for that. That's what you'll see in the dashboard side. What information? Important notifications that you see here. You also get email notifications on anything that happens, move in, move out, termination. All of the notifications, they get sent to that email that you set up. So this little window up here will be dynamic. It will change. If you have something important, it'll pop it up there. Occupancy, it'll give you the occupancy for all the houses. It'll give you member reviews for the members that are at your house. This is your portfolio and earnings collected year to date. You can swap it out for view earnings. You can swap it out per property. This is your availability, which means when does a member have the ability to move in? Currently, my setting is for 1 day after booking and then up to 2 weeks after their booking. When can they move in? If you wanted to edit any of these settings, you can go to this little edit availability, select the property that you want to hit, come in here, select your property. You can edit any of the move-in times. This is really important because when we get into why aren't people booking my room, if you took the default settings on the move-in times for bookings, if the default setting is 9 a.m. to 6 p.m., if most of ours, almost all of our members, if they're not on like SSI or some fixed income, they're working, right? We're a workforce housing solution. If you got it set to 9 to 6 and they know that they're going to get off of work at 6 o'clock and they're looking for houses where they can move in after work, then, and they select a button that says, hey, I'm looking for evening move-ins. In our world, evening is considered 6:01. So it's like, that's what ends up happening. Your property won't even show up in the search if you're not using extended hours. But at the end of the day, from an operational standpoint, what do you care? We're a digital platform designed during COVID, and members move in and move out of houses every single day without a single piece of human interaction that's required to be there. But because we understand that's how the platform is set up, it's kind of important for us to make sure that the communications that we have set up with our members is set up correctly. I'll show you that in 1 second. So scrolling across the dashboard, going from the dashboard settings over to metrics. Metrics has two wonderful pieces of insight and data. One is member feedback. Hey, these are the reviews that members are giving you. This is the move-in review. This is the stay review. These are public reviews. I'll give you a crystal ball. We're not collecting these reviews for our health. At some point, these reviews are going to be tied back into what your listings and how they're communicated to members as to what to expect or what historical people have said before. The other one that I think is really more important for new hosts is this performance metric. So in the performance, you have a submenu, occupancy, tenure, time to flip, pending rooms, and listing. For new hosts, listing is probably the most important one, because this is one of the few data points where you'll get to see or get feedback on, hey, who's actually looking at my listing and what's the traffic that my listing is getting. So you select your property on the right-hand side and you scroll down. We'll give you a data point at the top that says, hey, how many views does it take for your house to get a booking? And then what is the metro average? Which means, so there's two different graphs that are shown. One is search impressions and the other one is views. Search impressions, I think, is a vanity metric. It just means that your property tile is on the page like this. If you look at the member search window, it says the find a room. If you haven't been on the PadSplit site as if you were a member, searching in your city to go find your listing, you're doing yourself a disservice. So the way the math works, or the way the algorithm kind of works, and I'll get into this in a little bit, if I'm searching for a room, there are 3 across each row, and there's 20 tiles on every single page. In Atlanta, I have 37 different tiles. If I'm on page 5, I guarantee you I'm getting less views than somebody who's on page 1. So it's kind of important to figure out what the algorithm is and how do I set up my listing so it gets higher up on the algorithm so I get more views. If I click in position 1A, it'll say 220 people have viewed this listing today. Okay, let's go back to my listing. My listing as of yesterday had 4. So I'd much rather have 220 than I do 4. So that's the kind of metrics that I think are really important. Take a snapshot at your own house. Hey, this is what my listing looks like today. All right, well, let's go take a look at our listing. So if this is our listing, you go to the manage window and you've got 3 different drop downs. Properties. So once you have a list of properties, it's going to show each individual one here. Rooms, and this is going to show you how many rooms and what are the mechanics for every room that you have at this house. I have 7 rooms at this one property. What's going on? What's your status of the rooms? How long have people been there? What's your pricing analysis? When's the last price change? What's the current weekly pricing? You can go into price details. You can go ahead and add in and control at your fingertips, edit my pricing, edit my promotion, edit my move-in fee. You can change any of those things that you want to change from a click of a button, which is from the rooms menu. The member side menu, click this and you pull up your members and it'll give you a list of all the members that you have at your house. Moving right along this main dashboard page. Okay, I'm talking like a race for air. I'm going to stop. Any questions? We're good? Okie doke.
Yeah, we're good.
Earnings. Earnings is your report. This is your revenue earnings over the course of a year. I will show you the beginning here because I have it on a different slide, but this is essentially your revenue expectation for the first 90 days. Ignore September. My house was put on a different side, waiting for the city of Atlanta to approve a program with homeless people. And just like everything that works with a city, especially Atlanta, that program fell through. I was so pissed because I lost 30 days of potential occupancy. So I listed the house on the platform in October. I got 2 bookings moved in. I collected $1,266, or PadSplit collected $1,266 in total revenue. I was paid out $692. This is an example of what the 10-day fee has, how it impacts your booking, your net revenue. Next November, 2 more rooms come in, and I collected $1,365. So it's like 55% of the first month, 63% of the second month. I got tired of that. Let me just pull up the slide so I can just jump right into it. I got kind of pissed off about it. So this is what happened. I had 2 bookings that came in, 3 bookings that came in November. And then I was like, wait a minute. If I know I have to pay a booking fee, are there any workarounds for that? Yes. If I get referrals from my own members who are not members on the platform, for new people to move into the platform and book in my room, I don't have to pay the booking fee. So as an entrepreneur, I was like, the hell yeah, I don't want to pay the booking fee. So what did I do? I put out an emphasis on trying to attract more referrals from the members that were in my own house. A couple different ways to consider this idea. The reason I did that was there's less friction in a house if people know each other. And the other part about it is if I have one member living in my house and she works at an Amazon warehouse facility that's 2 miles down the road and it's convenient to her, there probably is 600 employees at that same facility getting paid roughly the same dollar amount, where my housing option is probably a good fit for that member. So I found a lot of success in pushing for referrals. So because of the financial impact of that, when we know that I can forego the 10-day fee, I've made that part of my operating business, is that on my inbound screening, I always collect 2 things. It's a longer list than that. I have like a 32 question member screening questionnaire, but it is, hey, I will approve you. Here are the questions that you must answer. If they don't want to answer the secondary screening, then I reject the booking. Because if they're not willing to answer 30 questions, then they're probably not going to be very easy for me to interact with as a member inside of my own house. So
hey, Quentin,
yeah.
Can you share that questionnaire that you have?
Yes and no. Maybe like I say it in this way because I got 2 things happened. I shared everything the way I do it. And the way I do things, it's not normal. And I'll show you what I mean by that. I will talk about the framework about things that most hosts should do in terms of like, hey, how are you addressing your listing from a marketing standpoint? How do you do your screening and all these other things? When I shared my specific templates and my IP in terms of like how I screen for members, I had a host complain to PadSplit that, well, I followed this doc that your guy gave me and I was rejecting everybody and I wasn't making any money. So I gave you a big FU to that concept, to that idea of like, not my problem. You know what I mean? So it's like, if you don't want to create your own, you ask for it and then you complain about it. You know, welcome to today's America is like, you're entitled punk ass beat, you know, but so that's, you know, a long way of saying, yeah, Celia, I'll send it to you. Just don't complain about it. Okay.
All right, cool. And just a quick question, I guess. I know you asked earlier, but it didn't come to mind. Like with the commissions and the way that that's I guess implemented.
Mm-hmm.
I had a member who requested to move in early.
Yep.
And so
They
again,
asked you or they asked the platform?
They asked me.
Mm-hmm.
And I was not able to make adjustments from the host dashboard.
You can.
Huh?
You can.
You can, okay.
Yeah.
Because
so
then the member was also saying that they didn't have access to make adjustments on their end. So again, I had to involve PadSplit support and request that they make the edit.
So from the booking window, where is it? There, you have the ability to slide and adjust move-in dates. It's supposed to be on this window. Wah, 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 wah. See what I got here. Moving in. So if you go to the moving in window and you get to this place here, you can get into their profile and you can change the date of their move-in. The reason why it's really important for you to have the ability to change the date of the move-in is the billing The way our billing
Right.
works is if you haven't gotten into the actual billing of a member, it is the way the billing works is they will prepay for whether they choose a 1 week or a 2 week billing cycle. They have to prepay for that billing cycle before they move in. So if they want to move, and I've had members do it all the time, they're like, hey, I want to move in 2 days earlier. Then I have to go back in and you can change the move-in date. Or you can just contact customer service and say, hey, this member wants to move into room 2 days earlier, and just have them do it. I hear you, Celia. I would love for everything to be very digital. I could do everything from the dashboard side. There's some instances where it's going to be manual. And the double occupancy, that's a big pain in the ass one, because the system.
I mean, in terms of like the 10-day, like I want to make sure that they're like accounting for that appropriately and not like
missing 2 days.
days.
Yeah.
Right.
Or charging them 12
days. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And that's the biggest part, is the financial piece of it, is like their occupancy data has to start on the right day for the right room. Right. Like when you get into the future state, when you have a duplex, like I kind of love that you're from Chicago, but like Chicago and close enough, but like I love Milwaukee for co-living because the housing stock is a ton of 3-2 duplexes side by side.
Right.
So I can buy 3-2 duplexes. Yeah.
One of the properties is duplex. And so I have a apartment,
unit A,
three-bedroom
unit B,
apartment above, and then I have a duplex down unit below that.
Yeah.
And so it's definitely that setup. But I'm having a really hard time. I'm used to controlling the money.
I know.
And so I'm trusting PadSplit to control the money. And I want to, conduct some checks and balances on my end to make sure that the math is like making sense and that I'm understanding these commissions and, the 10-day thing and the 8% and that PadSplit's math matches my math.
Yep.
And
understood.
And I'm like trying to put my finger on it and it's nowhere to be found. Like I feel very frustrated with that.
It's not super intuitive.
And I tried to call, like, there's no host support phone number. I had to call the member support number and they put in a ticket and I have to wait for a call back or an email back. And it's like, these people are in my house. I need to make sure that
they're being billed correctly.
I'm getting paid. Yeah. It's like we're fronting the product and PadSplit is taking their cut from the product, the revenue. And I'm just like in this very vulnerable position of like,
no, hold on.
Where's my money?
I hear what you're saying, right? I think the simplest solve for your feel of anxiety is you got to get in there and get comfortable with the actual product, limitations and cons, pros and cons, right? And the more you get comfortable navigating around in this stupid thing, you kind of figure out where you're trying to get the answer that you're looking for. And there's the caveat to that is some of those answers you're looking for don't exist. And that's why you have to go through support in order to get these things done. Your double occupancy thing is a really good one. Like I had a woman that's moving into room 2, and she's like, hey, my partner's coming in. And I was like, listen, your partner has to get background screened and approved as a member before I can approve you. You got a 24-hour window. If she doesn't get approved by then, I'm going to reject the booking because I don't want to deal with it after the fact. I'm going to approve you. And then this whole wheels in motion gets started. And then I'm going to find out your partner is like some sexual predator / released convict. I don't want that in my house. So get through your mission and what you need to get through early. But I understand the limitations of the product. So I have to have that conversation with the member who then states, hey, I'm going to have, a double occupancy scenario here, because on my end, all my rooms are listed as a single occupancy. So the room price is $206. But if it goes to a double occupancy, it's now $306. Right. And I don't have the capacity to give an if then pricing scenario using the product. I have to then go back and manually adjust. Again, these are the adjustments and manual pieces that you kind of figure out.
Yeah. And the other part that I've run into as it relates to this is like moving a member from one room to another.
Mhm.
And my observation of it is like every time you do that, it adds in another move-in fee
Mhm.
or
No,
like the
that's
member
if it's
dues.
a member driven change, they'll kick in a move-in fee. If it is a host generated transfer, it waives the move-in fee. If it is an emergency transfer from your toilet exploded in the master bedroom, it'll waive the member transfer fee. But if it's a member I choose to upgrade into the other room with the master bathroom, that move-in fee is then charged to the member.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Like,
Yeah. And I'm glad that you bring up the waiving because that was the other like when I was reviewing the financials for the member, it's like for every move I'm seeing member dues, member or
yep,
move-in fee, and then in some of them, in some places it said waived, and I was like, okay, who's waiving this? Like again, just trying to follow the math.
yeah,
It has been like a challenging part of it when there are like member moves as a new host. You know, I didn't know what I was doing, and so like
yeah.
I
So
moved.
there's a difference between a concession and a waive. If you give a concession, PadSplit treats that as if you're coming out of pocket to pay the $100 concession. So they'll scoop an 8% off of that. If you waive a fee, there's no money exchanged. So they will not. So I'll give you an example. Hey, Michael wants to mow the lawn. He's like, yo, you keep paying a guy to mow the lawn. I'll mow the lawn. All right, great. I'll waive 25 or $100 off your rent. If I give a concession, PadSplit's scooping 8% out of that $100. So I'm paying 108 versus the 100. If I waive the $100 out of the kindness of my own damn heart, right? There's no money exchanged mentally or, in their mind. So they don't take a fee. All these stupid ass things you're going to come across when you come across these stupid scenarios, but it's going to cost you 8% in the learning fee. I'd rather try to save you that tuition of, of these scenarios. So ask the questions in that way. If there's something that comes up and you want to waive or concede something, wait a minute. How do I get billed and how do I not? Because you will get frustrated to the point where you're like, I feel like I'm getting nickel and dimed.
Okay.
All right. So we got about 30 minutes. I'm going to jump into the managed properties because this is the most important. Hello? Okay. So this is your listing, right? So you go to manage properties. You go to this menu here. That's the wrong menu. And then you can click on your property. Boop. Does anybody know the menu? Have you searched through this arrow over here? Because you're missing good stuff. This promotion in the settings window. If you haven't gotten to that side of the little arrow for these menu, per property, the overview gives you kind of similar that you saw in the dashboard, but it'll break it down by room. This is your income for the house. This is how many people are occupied in that house. These are financials. You can do everything at the house level here. I've got owners that own 40 of these. It's a pain in the ass for them to try to drill down on the main menu, so they do it at the property menu. Month-to-date earnings collections. This is your bedrooms. Who's in these rooms? It'll give you, if you click on the three little buttons here, it'll break down your occupancy of who's lived in these houses in this room and during what duration. This is really useful if you ever want to buy an existing property. If you ever want to get a behind the scenes look at what kind of member management or property management they're having, if you pop open a occupancy and you see 7 of these people living in a house or in a room, then you're like, hey, what's going on? How come that person keeps moving out every 2 days? So just a backside kind of way of getting into it. So you get occupancy, your room price. If you have not seen this thing here that says adjusted room price, if you have a room rate of $100, the member published pricing will say 103 because there's a 2.75 transaction fee that is then passed to the member. So it's the credit card swipe fee. So if you listed a room at 250 and you really want that room to be at 250, you actually need to list that room at 243 because they'll take that 3% fee and tack it on. And you can see that from the manage rooms menu. When you go into the specific pricing of this room, you can pop it open and you'll see, hey, I have this 109 because it's based off of 103. Okay. Does anybody follow that? It'll tell you the adjusted. This is the amount. It includes a transaction fee that members will see. This is the price that they pay. Make sense? So here's a little hack for new members, new hosts. Okay. I want you to take a look at this little menu over here. This is the numbers that they use to calculate this room price comparison against the zip code average. In my specific scenario, my rooms are about $45 more than my neighbors in the closest proximity to my house. So that as a dynamic marketplace, I could charge whatever I want. But if in order for me to compete, I better figure out a different way to compete than just on base price. So I am amenities driven and value driven in terms of how I set up my rooms. When you go back to how you set up your rooms when you did your original listing, every little thing that you see here are examples. And this is why I pulled this one up. If you add a mini fridge, it adds $5 to the weekly rate. If you have a workspace or a desk, it adds $7. Large bedroom size, $6. If you got a walk-in closet, $10. If you have a private bathroom, $58. It's not to say it's the greatest thing, but it does give you an idea around what the platform thinks the recommended price for this room should be, $176. I still charge $203 because the value in my house is significantly better. I know it's going to take longer to fill, and I even charge a move-in fee. It's longer to fill. I get it, but at the end of the day, I know that I have to do a better job communicating member value and why they're booking this room. So let me go back to here in the manage properties. And from this menu, you have access to your listing details, this magic button up here on the right-hand side. For new hosts, this is really important. See this carousel of photos up top? These are the photos that you hand selected in order to be on the carousel that is shown here. So if you go back over here and say, hey, I want to show these certain pictures because I'm trying to tell a certain story. I don't personally know why somebody chooses a bathroom shot, but it's an indicative to me that they didn't understand as they're loading photos what the if-then statement was about how I load photos impacts how they're shown on the desktop, right? How do I see which photos are in my carousel? See this edit photos button right here? You hit that. This goes back to the photos that are tagged to your property. You have the option. We have a new function right here. It says choose the best photos for me. Again, I like to control everything. So I'm like, no. But if I turn it on, then PadSplit would choose what they consider to be the best photos. So scrolling down, you'll see common photos. This is where you drop and drag photos into that. Bathroom, bedrooms, all of these different things are here. Go to the very bottom and you see this thing says edit photo order. Oh, I forgot. Down here, you can put in your virtual tour. You can put in a 3D tour here. Just because it says it's a property tour doesn't have to be a property tour. It's just a video, right? Before they had videos, remember I told you I talked to hundreds of hosts. Well, I talked to hundreds of members as well. And one of the things they always told me was, look, the photos, I only see two-dimensional photos of what each room looks like. I don't have any idea what the house is like. So I leveraged YouTube videos, posted them, and then put the links into my description. I'll show you in a second. So people got a better view of what the house was like. This listing card photo blue box is 10 photos that you can manually shift around and edit. You can put whichever photos you want, into this collection of them. and you'll start, you can adjust anything that you want in terms of which photos are displayed when. I personally have a belief in this. I'm going to take off the pad split hat and put on the investor hat. I don't know why I would show bedrooms that aren't available anymore. I think that's kind of sets you up for disappointing the customer. If you've got amazing, master bedroom shots, then you want to do that, then so be it. But when they click into it, if that room's not available, what happened, right? So I use this space very dynamically. I'll adjust photos for the rooms that are available. I want to call attention to this thing here, this photo that has, all the bedding in it. Why do I have that photo listed up there? Well, mostly because I want people to understand that when I charge $100 move-in fee, it comes with something. So I want to justify value for the move-in fee. And that's why I choose certain things like this photo here. And I put a label that says, hey, brand new bedding is included in the move-in fee. And then I show an example of what that bedding looks like. So I'm justifying the $100 cost differential. What else is there?
Your moving fee is 100?
Yes. Because for me, hold on. I'll break it down real quick. I can get the bed in a bag for 27. I got this shower caddy for $7, $11 for the towel set, and $3 a pillow. Right. So it's like, for me, I wanted that experience to look like this when they move in, because fundamentally for me, I look at my business of co-living as a 10-year game. So I tried to weave in as hospitality into that model. And I think that's just my own conviction. There's nothing around how I do co-living that is synonymous with how Pad Split will tell you to do it. In many cases, Pad Split will say never have a living room. When I walked this house with a general contractor, he wanted me to break this space into 2 bedrooms. I was like, why? He's like, well, you can get 2 more bedrooms in there. But then I would have like maximum 4-to-1 ratios for bathrooms everywhere. I'm like, that's just not my bag. Other hosts on this dynamic marketplace have the ability to do that. And I'm sure some of them make a ton of money. I'll make my money on the tenure. So again, that's just how I run my business. Celia, you asked a question before I interrupted you.
Yeah, I was curious to hear what your like cleaning practices are, especially when you have like these, more tenure, like you said, members staying with you.
Yep.
Like what exactly do you provide? Is there a cleaning fee that you charge?
So that's a really good question. Celia, I like how your brain works. Okay. So it's like, let's talk about the dollars, because that's what we're in here for. Okay. So my room rates are significantly higher than everybody else, but included in the room rates is I run a better community, right? I have common spaces with a furnished outside patio with furniture. I have a furnished living room. My kitchen comes fully stocked, including the freaking, hand mittens so you don't burn your hands. I want it to be just bring your luggage and suitcase into the house, but cleaning supplies are provided every single month. And in the beginning, again, I use this as a testing tool for multitude of things. One, as an educational component for hosts. I run a outside coaching practice company for teaching people how to invest in this. So like I use this as a teaching exercise for what's possible, because people believe that they just have to follow. Look at this. 20 slides on this thing. Outside photo, dining room. Kitchen, outside photo, kitchen. Outside photo, kitchen, bedroom. Bedroom, right? And then somehow you come across my listing and there's my stupid ass fat head sitting with 7 people. I take this idea of marketing through the lens of how I view members are viewing this. This is no different than a TikTok or an Instagram scroll for me. So when members are looking at this, they're scrolling and scrolling and scrolling. I'm trying to figure out what's going to make somebody stop. That's the first part of how I attack marketing, right? And then if I get them to stop and they click into it, now I want to talk about conversion. This is what I spend a ton of time tomorrow talking about. This is like so important for hosts. A, nobody told you you have to use the photos of the kitchen, the dining room, or whatever, right? That's just the categories that we make sure we get photos. Therefore, we go ahead and can quantify from quality, whether there's a refrigerator, there's a toilet, there's all that. Like I had a host yesterday, couldn't activate a property because the bathroom photos that our QA people were like, there's no photo of a toilet. I literally wanted to strangle the little man and be like, you're telling me that you don't believe there's a toilet in the kitchen, in the bathroom photo that my man did? There's a hole in the floor. And I just went off, but that's his checklist, right? He's got a job too. And I was like, all right, let me go get a toilet picture put in there. You have agency to use this real estate that we provide to you in this 10 photo carousel to put whatever the hell you want in there, right? And because it's dynamic and you're not limited to one change a day, get in there and figure out through the metrics tab on your dashboard, oh, that works. That gives me more views. The algorithm that I'm going to teach you here is LPP, is location, price, and photos are the top 3 indicators. Look at this. If I drew an XY axis across the map, this property lands in this spot because it's closest to the middle. Combination of acceptable price with a good photo. If I have a house that's up in here, I'm never going to be in this position unless the member says, I want to live in Marietta and moves the map accordingly. And now that house will fall into position 1 because it goes off of location, price, and photos. Y'all follow me? So if you're in Chicago and you're in freaking, St. Charles, Illinois, right? But the map goes in the middle of Chicago, it's not going to show up because it's on the outskirts of where the map is shown and it'll default to the middle. Well, because our algorithm and understanding of how members search is they use the map and they navigate into the area of town in which they want to live. So now all of a sudden, when you do that, then it changes the listing priority of the rooms that are here.
Another question for you in terms of the pricing recommendations that Password puts out, like what goes into, I know you broke down like certain amenities will give you a higher recommended price, but I mean, what I'm noticing here in Chicago, like Password recommended super low rates. And I was like, I'm not doing that. And
Celia, give me a chance, okay? Celia Chavez, you and I are going to be friends. So you get to do this if you really wanted to. It's your house, Celia. It's your business, right? Like, so we went out to Phoenix, Arizona, right? We opened this up. I always forget I'm recording, so I got to edit that part out. But like, we went out to Phoenix, Arizona, and the hosts were like, well, what should I charge for rent? And we went back into our Atlanta data because we didn't have any Phoenix, Arizona data. And we're like, well, this is what the average rents are, right? $175 for a shared bedroom and $250 for a master. And the guys who were the first, and the guys and ladies who were the first hosts in Arizona and Phoenix were like, hold up. Average market rate rent out here is like $2,800 for an apartment. And I'm going to charge $350. And our company was like, what? It's never going to fill. Dude, those rooms filled so fast. Celia, you know more about Chicago than we do. You set your market price. You test it for 7 days. If it doesn't fill, as an entrepreneur, what are you going to do? Raise the price? No, because you understand the concept of opportunity cost, right? Like, have a strategy for pricing. Go in there what you think it is. We will tell you that the formula that we should typically use is if you look at the geography around your house, what would be an average room rental on like a Furnish Finders or a Zoomy or Roomies, or what is the average rent for an apartment studio? That's kind of what we tie it back to is like, hey, don't charge $350 a week if the average rent for a studio is $1,000, right? You got to have some common sense in terms of like, as the member, I would choose to live in a studio apartment for $1,000 versus pay you to live with 6 other people for $1,000, right? That's just kind of commonsensical. Unless you want to leverage access as being the value add. But again, it just kind of goes back into it. I just wanted to show you an example. See this hand that I'm moving? My house sits right in the middle of this cluster of really cheap ass rooms. So this is all what I call generation 1 houses. 7 threes, 7 twos, 8 twos, 9 threes, like 1,600 square feet, little dinky ass houses with a lot of bedrooms, because this area of town's really cheap to acquire. So hosts were just putting in a ton of bedrooms. So I came in here and I charged $200 a room. So I have a $60 variance between me and everybody else. That's why my listing, I had to be really aggressive in terms of how I marketed my listing. Like I joke, but who leads out with, we may not even be for you, right? Well, it's because I listened to a ton of social. This marketing guy was like, hey, Air Force, Marines, Navy, Army, they went to a high school senior auditorium presentation on the military, and the Navy, the Air Force, and the Army were like, hey, we're the greatest thing since sliced bread. We've got all this technology. You should come to us. And the Marine dude walked up on stage and looks around, doesn't say a word, and goes, there's probably not a single person in this room that deserves to be a Marine. But if you're interested, I'll be in the back of the room. And lo and behold, who had the longest line? The Marine did, right? So I heard that and I was like, I'm going to go ahead and change my PadSplit listing to test for that. And that's how this stupid comment came in here as a test. So again, it said, you can do anything that you want with your listing. If it's effective, feel free to use it. Like, do not feel like you are hindered into doing the way, you think somebody else is doing it. Getting back to the pricing thing that you had, Celia, is this. I have to make sure I communicate to my members the value in which they stay. So I have a monthly cleaning service that always comes by. New bedding is always provided. Cleaning supplies are always provided. I'll give you the quick story behind that. When I talked to a ton of members, we had a problem from a PadSplit side. We had these houses where the move-ins were failing because the members were like, I'm canceling my move-in a day after they moved in. So that's considered a failed move-in. And so I literally went to the house that had the worst one and I knocked on the door. And I said, hey, what's the deal? How come people move in here on a Tuesday and move out on a Wednesday? And the feedback that I always get is the house is disgusting. The house is dirty. And ultimately what they said was, we have a monthly cleaning service. That's a minimum requirement. So the host does do that. But the members in the house, they weren't cleaning dishes. So they were stockpiled in the kitchen, all, stocked the dishes. And the toilets in the bathrooms were nasty until the cleaning person came back. So I asked the member, I go, why don't you guys clean up after yourself? And the member said, listen, I want to stay in a clean house, but I'd be damned if I'm going to go to the store and buy cleaning supplies for the whole house. And he goes, I'm not the cleaner for the house. I was like, interesting. So I took that feedback in my first property and I said, all the cleaning supplies are always included. And all I did was take the cost of the average set of cleaning supplies and I divided it by 7 rooms and I added that in at a weekly basis into the rate for the room. That's why my room rates are a bit higher, but I make sure when I speak to the members, I tell them all the stuff that they get. And the expectation is you keep your house clean. So I have a extremely clean house with members that clean up behind themselves. As an operator, I had to solve for that. And I'll tell you a quick little story tactically about that. I was sending the same shipment from Amazon, like it was an easy button, like Staples. And then I got to the house on my monthly house meeting and I was like, damn, I got a stockpile of garbage bags and I got a stockpile of toilet bowl cleaner, but I have no Fabuloso and I have no Lysol. So I literally created a QR code that they could do an inventory of what's there. And on that QR code, it kicks out to an Excel report or a Google Sheets report. It tells me what inventory is sitting there so that I reorder the stuff we need and not the stuff we don't need. And it reduced my cleaning supply cost for the month. So that was a tactical thing that we did there. I want to show you guys one more thing about this listing. So from your property menu for new houses, the concept of opportunity costs. Does anybody have any questions about what opportunity costs are?
What do you mean?
So an opportunity cost. I have a room that I want to rent for $209 or $203 here, right? So every week I'm like, this room deserves to get $300. And I'm a new host. And I sit there for week 1, 7 days go by. Nobody books. I then go by week 2. Nobody books. But everybody around me is charging 150, 160, 140, whatever the case may be. But I'm so stubborn on this room deserves $200. Bro, we're in the process of collecting money, not hoping for money, right? So figure out a price to get this room booked. Even if you go down to 180, would you rather feel like you're losing $20 a week or $203 a week? And that's the differential between opportunity costs, right? So it's like some people that want to say, my room is this, 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 and this, and it deserves to get this price. It's like, just like every realtor that's out there, your room is exactly what people are willing to pay for it, right? So it's like, just because you bought it bad and you have to list the price at a certain room, an empty room with no revenue is worse than a filled room with less revenue. So that's the opportunity cost question. Any questions so far about the rest of this thing? The big thing that I want to show you while we're finishing up here is this. The promotions tab off of the property menu. You can scroll down here and create a flyer. And then this flyer will bring you back to the URL for your specific property. If you go from your dashboard and you use like, hey, my referral piece of it, this referral link does not go back to your specific property. It goes back to the platform, right? So it's like, Matt, you want somebody to book your room. You're much better off sending them the from the property menu, the QR code that you strip out of the flyer that you create, because this will take you back to your specific room. So for instance, like I've got grocery stores, businesses, I drop off these flyers all the time because I want to get net new and I don't want to pay the booking fee.
That also waives the 10-day cost, right? For
It does, very much so. Yep. All right. So going back to your house manual, if you want to edit the rules from your property manual, there's overview and hit house manual. This is all the information that is shared with members coming inbound. So when they book a room, this is your move-in instructions. I've seen a ton of hosts just take the default instructions. Welcome to your warm and cozy home and pad split, blah, 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 blah. If you have a house that has certain parameters that are unique to the house, which means that like in Atlanta, when we have houses, let me see if I can find one. If you walk into the front door and you walk right into a living room that you've converted into a bedroom, that's no longer your front door, right? But new members coming inbound, unless you tell them in your move-in instructions, hey, go to the side door by the kitchen and enter the code, they're going to be knocking on room 3 every single time they want to move in at 11 o'clock at night, complaining to you that I can't get in. And the room 3 guy's like, bro, if these people don't stop knocking on my door at 3 a.m, I'm going to lose my mind. Well, you're the host. This person's never been to your house before. Even to the point where I have this little YouTube video link I put in here because I use Eufy locks. Like I was just making a video. Because I use this specific lock, none of our members know how to use digital locks, right? So it's like each digital lock, you got to put a code and then you got to hit a little check button or you got to hit a code and do something else. Just make it easy for them. That like, hey, welcome to the house. Here's all the information that you need. Put in your code, hit the lower right-hand corner blue check button. You want to reduce the friction for moving into your house. Move out instructions, same thing. Be real specific about what you want. And your Wi-Fi lock codes. I've asked for this to be adjusted is, hey, my house runs multiple subnets. So I want to be able to put in there multiple Wi-Fis. They haven't updated that yet. So when I communicate with members on their, when I interview them and I approve them, I do send them a welcome text with all of the lock codes for them to move in. So there's no issue. You'll see here that I actually have bathroom lock codes. Why? Because I have a 7-3 with a master. So there's people that share the bathrooms. One of the things that I found when I was talking to members was they asked the question, how many people am I sharing a bathroom with? So I put it right into my listing, right? I want it to be eyes wide open. Well, if 2, 3, and 7 share the upstairs, how do I kind of restrict that? Well, I put a lock on it because I don't want 7 people using the most convenient bathroom, which is right next to the kitchen, when these 3 people are the same ones that have to use that bathroom. So at this point, the members actually keep the door open because they know that to go down and use their own bathroom. But in the beginning, I did that. So another little hack for you guys is in your house, label your rooms. Okay, let me tell you what I do. You don't have to do it. Room number, letter is for the bathroom. So 2B, 3B, 7B, 4C, 5C, 6C. Why? Because when I call in the maintenance guy for a problem with the plumbing, I tell him bathroom C. So he's not navigating around the whole damn house looking for which bathroom is broken, right? And when you tell the members you're assigned to bathroom 2B, it's pretty easy for them to understand which bathroom they're assigned to. So that's just a operational logistics thing. All right. We're going to go over in a couple of minutes, but I kind of want to take a stop here. Any questions around all this wonderful information that's available on our dashboard?
I have a few questions of why the Hufy lock and not the regular locks that PadSplit offers.
What does PadSplit offer?
I don't know the name brand of the lock that they offer. So
they don't offer anything. I don't necessarily think so. They talk
and
about
more
Yale,
like of advice, a
Slage.
suggestion, advice.
Yeah. I like the Eufy because I like the dashboard and the app. So if I wanted to go into the actual house, I can go into my app and change all the lock codes. Right. And you could do it from probably anyone, but this is the one that I found that I like the most. I can change this really easy. I then have to manually go into here and update the lock codes like when I move out. The battery life is probably the worst part about it. There's 8 AA batteries, but like I just have a stack of AA batteries in the house. And then whenever I see the battery running low, I give a message to the house messenger, hey, please change out the batteries. Plus, I run a monthly house meeting, so I'm at the house once a month, and then I'll go by and verify those. User preference is kind of the best thing that I like about it, and then the next couple houses that I put on, I use the same lock, so then I'm just kind of married to that. Some people swear by the Slage. Some people like the Smarmy or Schmarmy or whatever the other lock provider is, but it's user preference.
I have Yale
Mm-hmm.
locks, which are connected to Remote Lock,
Mm-hmm.
which has an integration with PadSplit.
Mm-hmm.
But I've been trying to figure that out because it's a 2-unit building. It's like both units need access to the exterior door.
Yeah.
And so setting that up has been tricky as well.
Yeah. And then you'll find out. So there's a difference between mechanical lock and smart lock. Smart lock gives you the option of giving every individual their own front door code. on our product. The mechanical lock does not. Right. So when you're selecting your locks, make sure that you have the smart locks come in, because when you here, let me just show you on the front door code, you can put in their own individual lock code if you so decide to on a smart lock. Right.
Right.
So
right, but my property has a street entrance. Then each unit has its own front door. Like once you're inside.
Yeah. So you have a room lock code and a front door code.
No, I have the exterior door, the front door to the unit, and then
I got you. So you have like an outside.
There's like a foyer, I guess.
Yeah. Got you. It's kind of like in New York where you have where the mailboxes were, that door, and then you get into the actual building door, and then you have your bed, your apartment door. I got you. And
so everyone needs access to the exterior door, but then not everyone needs access to the front doors to the units.
Okay. Wondering if you can put in front door 2 as a different kind of setting. Front door 1, front door 2, and then room doors. If not, then I'm not sure how you can play around in there to differentiate the two. Yeah. But again, this would go back to the importance of your move-in instructions and being really specific about that part of it. Make sense?
Yep.
Any questions there? Cool. What else? All right. This is the Q&A session. So as far as the product goes, and like I didn't even get into the House Messenger piece, but know that the House Messenger is your way to communicate with the entire house or individual members in the house. Also be aware that there's a House Messenger of just the members that hosts do not have access to. So I make that, a point, because I've heard on some occasions where, like, because hosts have no visibility in there, I've seen scenarios where, like, member is bullying the crap out of the other members. We would never know unless a member told us that. So just, make that pretty clear. Like, hey, we have visibility into the House Messenger. No, that's not true. I don't know. They don't know that. Right. But, keep it kosher.
You said it's called House Manager?
House Messenger.
Oh, House Messenger.
Yeah, I was starting to use the House Messenger a lot more with the tenants.
Yeah.
But I usually text them as well. I get their numbers and I text them if they want me to, if they need to contact me, if they need anything.
Yeah. I would always default into the setting of, like, more communication, the better. Right. Yeah. So, I'm a big proponent of like a lawyer. I want to know the answers before the questions I even ask the question. So I'll give you an example. The member feedback on the move-in survey, right? The move-in survey these are the questions that are asked. On that survey, they'll ask the questions around, here are the questions, right? Did you have any issues accessing your room? Was the host responsive? Are the utilities working as expected? How would you rate the condition of your room? How would you rate the condition of the common areas? I have a Google form that I send around in a call 24 hours to 48 hours after the member moves in. I ask these questions because this is collected 7 days after they move in. I want to make sure I get all 5s before they even get the pad split survey, right? Because if I get the response, I can adjust it. Like, hey, hold up. What do you mean that we weren't responsive? I responded you gave me the wrong damn number. Oh, you're right. You're right. And now all of a sudden, like, I'm going to get a 0 because you put in the wrong phone number. Let's talk about this correctly, right?
Can they edit their responses after submitting?
No. And that's a stupid part about it. And if you get a really crappy review, you have a 14-day window to dispute Any crazy that think like somebody moves in, you didn't let their partner in the house, so they're going to give you a real crappy review. Yo, hold up. I'm going to dispute that one. So just know that where you have some play in terms of working around our premise. I did want to cover one other thing before, because y'all are new and you're getting members and bookings. I'm going to just pop this up here. So on a member move in, you only get limited data, right? So it'll tell you phone number. You can open a chat and have that conversation with this person. What information do they give you? Take a look at the ID card and the application photo. Make sure that those two things match. Pull up their actual emergency contact. Hell, I call the emergency contact number, right? People get surprised by that. They're like, listen, I do this as a component to keeping everybody in the community safe. I'm also using it to verify whether they're there. Understand the limitations of the pad split background screening. Members pay $19 to become a member. If you're expecting some NSA, FBI level background screening, it ain't coming, right? So like some realtors use Forewarn. I just use a lot of Google searches. You can find a lot of stuff out in simple searches. Be aware that PadSplit does not go back and verify against the National Sexual Predator List. I've had hosts lose their crap. They're like, I did a Google search and this guy's on it. Now I have to register my house. Again, there's no free lunch, right? Like operate your business, like now that you know it, just run it on Google, and see what pops up, because you got to understand at the end of the day, this company, our platform company, it's designed around trying to solve the affordable housing crisis. So one of the biggest things is they have a lower barrier of entry than apartment complexes. If it was the same stringent thing, would be competing with apartment complexes. So let's just not forget that we are the Walmart of housing, and just it is what it is, so you can hedge your bets and operate accordingly, knowing what you know, and you make operational decisions as an entrepreneur. And that's why I'm such a big proponent of kind of talking to you guys as real as possible. All right, I'm going to stop talking and take any questions that you may have. Pop it open, unmute. Let's go. What do you got?
Do you use the PadSplit app as a host? Is there more than one?
The PadSplit app is like, I use it as essentially a messaging tool.
I hate it. It sucks.
Yeah, Celia, it is what it is. You know what I mean? Like, and the best part about that simple statement, I don't disagree with you, but in the world of single room occupancy, this is it. We're the Uber of single room occupancy, right? Help us get better by telling us how to do it better. And trust me, nobody bitches at my product team more than I do. I swear to God, I'm like one of the few hosts that are employees. I'm like, this sucks. Like, who are you coding this for? Your homie in the pod next to you, or me, the user, right? So like we have those discussions often. And there's a large list of things that they're working on. So as you come across it and the things that make sense, post them as tickets and post them as suggestions. Yeah. Yes to your question, Celia. I don't like the app so much, but I do use it as essentially a messaging tool. All right. What else you got? What other concerns? As something down the pipe that, hey, as you're coming across it, Michael, you just had a new booking, right? I know it's exciting. What questions did you ask the member moving inbound? Like, what did you feel like it was out of bounds for you to ask? Like,
I actually haven't had a call yet, so I just got this request late last night, and I have to call. That's my next call today. Is I have to call her. Yeah. So
my suggestion is to ask a handful of questions that I always ask, and I'll just give it to you now. Great. I always ask a couple things: is where do you work? How long have you worked there? Why do you want to live with other people? And then once they answer those questions collectively, then I go back into where did you live before and how much did you pay? again, I always go back to value, right? So every month when a member pays, I circle back around and I remind them with a text or a message. Hey, on your move-in instructions, you told on a survey, you told me that you paid $1,800 a month. This is another month where you've saved possibly $1,000 a month compared to where you were before. Congratulations. So every month I'm trying to make deposits into more reasons why you should stay. The 10-year reason why you stay. And then as a question goes, Michael, one of the other ones that I've just incorporated that I love a lot, please tell me the condition and the reasons why you left your last apartment or home or rental. And the learning behind that is if they start crapping on the previous landlord, you're just next in line to be crapped on, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that does make sense.
And then the other part is like, just be upfront about it. How long do you plan on staying? Oh, I just need this for, a month while I'm working up here. Oh, that doesn't actually work for me because I will lose money in that scenario. I'm going to lose the first 10 days of booking revenue collected. And that leaves me with 21 days of possible revenue collection that won't even cover the cost of what I just paid. So, encourage and navigate people into kind of finding out how long they plan to stay. And if they have a good experience, why they want, like for me, it's a big one is I try to like drop into the reason that they're staying and how do I lean into making that a reason that they want to stay longer.
That's great. Thank you. That's helpful.
You mentioned when you get a booking request to review like the ID and their selfie, make sure it matches. Have you encountered
Yes.
situations where they don't match? And if you do, like if you encounter that, how do you handle it?
I reject it and then I send a note to PadSplit and say, hey, ban this person.
And is it like very distinct or noticeable differences?
Sometimes it's just egregious. And I'm like, yo, like, what are you doing? Like I've always told our team internally, we've made it when there's a Reddit page on how to get approved for a PadSplit. I'm like, really? Because here's the reality. And this is speaking off the cuff, right? Let me just do this first. Nope, that's not what I wanted to do.